What's going on, guys? It's Brad here with you. What was I wanting to say? What's going on, guys? It's Brad with another video for you tonight, and we are going to be discussing Bollinger Bands. So, if you're just joining me for the first time, welcome. Thanks for tuning into my channel tonight. I hope that I can gain a subscription from you if you learned something tonight. For those of you who are returning, welcome back. Thanks for coming on back here. And so what I primarily do, if this is your first time here, is that I'm a trader and I trade over-the-counter stocks. They're stocks that aren't typically traded on the New York Stock Exchange and commonly referred to as pink sheets, or they are penny stocks, but they're most of them that we trade well under a penny. So fractions of a penny is what we're talking about here. Yeah, somebody was mentioning the market tank this afternoon. Yeah, that's the other thing I kind of wanted to address a little bit tonight is that, the nice thing about trading over the counter stocks, they don't really care about the Dow that much. They're not, because they're not traded like your typical blue chip stocks like Apple, Amazon, and all that. They don't really care too much about what the rest of the world's doing. So that's kind of one perk or positive when it comes to trading over the counter stocks. And I'll give you an example of that today. So we're talking about Bollinger Bands. Somebody said, "Gotta open with Tupac." Yeah. So I'm just reading some of the comments here. We were talking about the type of songs that we like or whatever, and that come from the genre of the early 90s, mid 90s hip hop or whatever is kind of like what I used to rock out to. So people were talking about Tupac on here. It just made me laugh. So anyway, a Bollinger Band. So Bollinger Bands can be a very effective way for trading and determining approaching price points. So we're going to talk about a ticker symbol that's CELZ. There are several areas that you could either, get an initial investment on, or you could sell from. And I want to go ahead and show you how I would determine potential entries and exits from a position on CELZ. So I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen with you real quick. So just bear with me. I'm going to pull it up on Thinkorswim. I know a lot of you guys are pretty big fans of that. So, and I was looking through when this was actually shouted out in our group. And if you're not familiar with our group, we are on Discord. It's a platform for chatting. It's typically for gamers, but we use it for, talking about stocks and that sort of thing. It's actually pretty common for many traders now to start using Discord. I already put the links in the description to join our Discord group. So you can join with like-minded individuals to talk about specific stocks, such as this one. And this one was shouted out Friday initially when it started to really gain some momentum and volume. It was around 1:30 or so on Friday that people really started to take notice. So if you look here, I'm looking at Friday's price point around 13:30. That's military time for 1:30 p.m. And it really started to jump up. Right here, it's sitting at 0041. It opened the day on Friday at like 27. I think it was 0027. So it's quite a jump there. And so it's gaining some traction. You can see on the volume bars here that volume had started to increase based off of the previous day. And right here is where we call contraction on a Bollinger Band. And so anytime you see contraction, it could potentially lead to some sort of breakout. Now, contraction, a lot of people will tell you that it could mean or does mean that there's going to be a breakout, but you never know with the OTC, especially if there's just dry volume here. I don't want people to get confused with the fact that it's just like, oh, it's just going to sit here and it's going to break out at some point. No, I don't want, you have to pay attention to the volume too. And so what was happening here is that volume started to pick up, and these bands here is upper and lower band. And then you have this middle SMA, which is simple moving average. It's a 20-day SMA, and the band started to separate. Now, they didn't really separate that much, but it's still showing a bullish breakout here. because everything's being traded up above the SMA here, and as they're starting to expand. So this could, if you're trading it short term, this could potentially be like a short term buy-in if you're getting it in above the SMA here and continue to ride that above that. Now, the other thing I would like to also mention is that this is starting to touch here. Let me zoom in. It's probably much easier for you to read. Easier for me to read when I'm zooming in here. Let me make sure I'm back on 23rd. So when it starts to, touch the upper bands here, see how it's touching the upper band? It's actually trading above the upper band here, and it's starting to trade above the upper band here a little bit. It could indicate signs of overselling, especially when you don't see this lower band separating too much from the upper band. When the bands move, especially drastically, it means that there's high volatility occurring. And so this, again, determines approaching price points. And so when you see this, it could potentially mean just like a short position, maybe just like a day trade for you if you're just into getting in the morning and then taking out or selling at a later time during the day. Or if you're planning on swing trading this, this could potentially mean that you're just going to ride it out, because at this point we weren't aware of any news that had come out on Friday. All this is just price action right at this point. And again, I want to also stress that this isn't just me using Bollinger Bands alone. We're also looking for potential catalysts. We're looking at volume here, and there's more than one ingredient when it comes to making a purchasing decision. Again, this is all just my opinion on the topic, just my observation and, things that I do that I find success in. And so anyway, you could see here that the bands are just starting to separate. And, this could be, especially with the lack of volume occurring before. And then all of a sudden this price action starts moving around, and it almost went up, almost 100%. It's about 80% or so, 85% that it went up on Friday as a high, came back down and started touching this lower band. Now, typically in the OTC, it's not abnormal to see selling off at the end of a day, especially on a Friday. And that's what you see here. Now, this could potentially mean that, especially if there's rumors flying around about news coming out, that this could, again, be a potential purchasing point for you if you weren't one of the lucky ones that got in at a much lower price. This here, as we can see, was the last time that we saw this sitting in the threes, because it was down here on the bottom band. And on Monday, news was released. They and I can go ahead and show you that here. So actually, I already had it pulled up. This is Monday morning's news. They came out with a procedure for ED. You can insert all the jokes here. But anytime that like any kind of pharmaceutical breakthrough or a huge announcement such as this goes through, it always means that, and typically, I won't say always, but typically means that, the valuation of this company is going to increase dramatically. And so obviously we saw that on Monday once that news was released. And this is what I want to talk to you about as far as maybe holding for a little bit of a longer hold. Whereas this, if you can see, the bottom band and the top band aren't really separating from each other, but they're still have like this bullish move up. They're kind of moving together. So this upper band's moving up, this lower band's moving up, but they're not really separating. They're not showing that volatility that you really want to see when you're taking like a long hold position on any position. And so that's what you see here. When the news broke out, tons of volume came in, as you can see here on the volume bars, and then the upper band started to move way up, and then the bottom band started to move way down. This usually indicates a huge bullish pattern, and that a breakout is occurring. So anytime that anytime you had gotten in here, or even made a swing trade on this on Friday, would have been a great time to enter in on this, especially if you're watching these bands and watching this bottom band separate from the top band. That's what you want to see when the candlesticks are riding this upper band and this bottom band is really starting to separate. That's what we like to see when we're holding a position like this. And you could see it was maintaining well above the SMA line throughout the entire day on Monday. And then we saw what we typically see at the end of the day after a big run like this. And there's people most likely taking profits. People were selling this off, but you could see that it was holding a pretty strong support here on the bottom band. Again, this is another potential. I want to stress the potential time to either, if you're already in it and you're planning on holding long on this, that you could add to your position here, or maybe you decide to sell your initial position and keep the profits that you have still in here to see what it could potentially do, because that news that came out was pretty significant. And so at this point, it's still closed. Where did it close at? It closed below a penny. And with the news that came out in regards to this, in my opinion, I would probably consider this being worth way more than a penny, especially when we're talking about ED. Am I right? So when you see the band starting to constrict again here, and it looks like there's some consolidation going on, and it's really touching down on the lower band, that typically indicates some overselling. Again, this is just a theory that a guy by the name of John Bollinger developed based off of standard deviation. Sorry about that. Standard deviation. This is how these bands are calculated. And so, again, what happened this morning was that news broke out once again that they were eliminating debt. And so, which again, as I've stressed in previous videos, that is always a big deal when it comes, with any company. Eliminating debt is obviously a huge thing, but when it happens in the OTC, it's even bigger. And we see this again. We see this separation down here, where this lower band really starts to separate from the upper band, and this bullish pattern for a breakout is still here. And obviously there was some selling off going out throughout the day, and you could really see if you're looking to try to make a quick day trade on here, how this was really starting to show signs of overselling right here. I have to believe is just people taking profits, because this is just not pretty as far as the rest of this run has gone so far. And you could tell here that people were starting to buy back in again because they could see this overselling happening. So this looks like it could be signs that it's going to remain bullish. We'll just have to see what it looks like at the open tomorrow. You never know what a catalyst always ruins your pattern. You could have a really solid pattern going on, and you're like, oh, this is great. I really see the cup and handle forming, or whatever you want to call it. Whatever pattern you're looking at, and then a catalyst comes and it really just throws you for a loop. So this, depending on, another catalyst coming out tomorrow, if anything, could lead to a more bullish of a run. But you never know. A lot of times when you see this type of price action and the market opens up again, it's not unusual to see a lot of selling off at the beginning, but then that also lends opportunity for people to get in at a cheaper price. So, pay attention to, your Bollinger Bands here. I just have it on a simple 5-minute, I have it on the 5-day just so I could, show you guys how this has been moving. But, this separation here, again, it's showing you the volatility that's occurring, and you have these Bollinger Bands that are squeezing here, and then volatility again, and then they're squeezing here, and this is volatility, but it goes the other way as the upper band's moving up away from the lower band as the selling occurs. Volatility doesn't necessarily mean it's moving up. Volatility means it's just that, it's volatility, so it can move up or down. So you just have to pay attention to how it's trading either above or below the SMA. So that is Bollinger Bands in a nutshell. that is, I hope that wasn't too confusing. For me, it's just, I think Bollinger Bands makes it simple. You don't have to worry about having a ton of spaghetti, is what I call it, hanging out all over your chart when you're doing technical analysis. And it's a simplified way to do your technical analysis. And I think it just gives you everything that you really need, honestly, when it comes to that. So let's see here, just going over some questions. As you guys know, who regularly visit my channel, if you are just visiting, every night at the end of my live streams, I always ask or answer people's questions. It doesn't necessarily have to be related to the topic, but I always like to try to, pluck those ones out. That way that, we can still stay focused on that, and then I can address some other ones. So go ahead and looking here to see what other questions we might have. By the way, I always like to shout these guys out because I'm super appreciative. Tanner, thanks so much for donating to my channel. I always appreciate it when people, are just donate for the hard work that I put in for y'all. So I really do appreciate that. So just scrolling down here. Oh yeah, somebody said, I noticed that my stocks really weren't affected by the Dow dropped 400 points. Yeah, so that's another, like I said, when people are like screaming and hollering and running around like chickens with their heads cut off because the Dow's down, it's like, well, okay, well, I'm just going to move on with my day. So that is kind of like one of the nice things about the OTC. Do you use Bollinger Bands all the time for your trading? I don't use them all the time. So sometimes I will use them, or I won't. Sometimes I won't use them, and I'll get into something such as like what we like to call a starter. So like I'm just going to throw like, I'm just going to grab a few shares of something if I see that a catalyst has just come out and the price action really hasn't moved any, and I like the share structure and I like everything else about the stock, and maybe I'm just getting in early before everybody catches wind of it. So I'll get a starter, and then I'll do further DD and check out the bands and see the volume that's coming in. And then I may make the decision to take a larger position or watch to see when selling occurs. And I see that, a lot of the candles are really either trading below that line or trading just at that line, and maybe determine that could be a potential spot to add on that dip. It all depends on, your level, your risk tolerance, obviously, and stuff like that. But sometimes it's better to try and get in a starter position early, and you don't want to throw like all your eggs in that basket, but you're just trying to get in at a lower average, right? So even if I'm just throwing like $500 at it just to try to say, okay, I see the catalyst there, the news broke out, I'm just going to grab a small position and then come back and do my due diligence. That's a way to kind of minimize risk in case things go south on you, but at the same time, minimize, I guess, missing out on and getting in at that low price. So that's kind of the strategy that I have in a nutshell when it comes to making entries and that sort of thing. If I'm not using Bollinger Bands solely. Melissa, I think I just answered that question. She asked, newer to trading, so don't have experience in down markets. How do ODCs typically fare? So yeah, I think I really addressed that. That they're really not affected by the New York Stock Exchange and what they're doing up there. Just scrolling through here, guys, bear with me. When you see Bollinger Bands constricting, how will you predict which way the breakout will be, up or down? So there's really no way to predict that. When you see them constricting, you could always try to pay attention to see how it's trading in relation to where the SMA is. If it's constricting and it's still hanging out above that SMA, it could indicate that it will break out and continue trading above that SMA. But that's not a surefire way. It's just a way to try and gauge it before it breaks back out. Always pay attention to where it's at above that SMA or below that SMA to see whether or not you want to either maintain your position or start to sell your position. All right. Okay, everyone go quickly like this video. Yes. So if you're watching this video and you're learning something today, please smash that like button. I really appreciate it. All right. Somebody said first profit in pennies today. Congrats. Someone said, would you play stocks that don't have foreseeable catalyst or news? If it's hitting between 2 price points, could you build your portfolio? I mean, I guess, but I wouldn't buy in anything that the reason you're buying into something is because you want the price point to go up, right? That's why I look for something that has a smaller float because I want that price action to move with little effort. So me personally, no, I don't see the point in buying into something that I don't expect the catalyst on. But that's just me. Just started trading. I love these live streams. Thanks. Appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in, Alex. I really do appreciate everybody viewing here tonight. Do you think LIBE's debt will be bought this week like they said? Chris Howe asks. So LIBE has been a popular one that a lot of us have been trading here lately. I personally think, again, after talking with the CEO, that he's doing everything he can, but a lot of it's out of his hands. It's all in the hands of the lender and that sort of thing. And these things take time, especially, in smaller companies. And I think it's all a matter of patience. And, I think he's being hopeful that this will be taken care of. It's been something that we've been watching for the last couple of weeks. And I think personally that it's going to be taken care of. It's just a matter of when. Excuse me. I got the Superman girl. You guys are funny. All right. What's the best way to research these type of stocks? So David asks, what's the best way to research these type of stocks? So perfect question. I always run through a lot of them in my previous videos, the types of resources that, and maybe I should start doing that. Maybe I should start putting links to the resources in my description. But OTCmarkets.com is a great way to look at the profile of any over-the-counter stock. So actually did this with CELZ as well. You can look at their share structure. You can look at their financials, news that comes out on them. Everything is there in OTC markets as long as there's no caveat emptor or CE slapped on there. All the information is readily available for you to view on there. CELZ is a OTC QB, which is a uplisted stock. So they're verified through the OTC markets. And yeah, so that's all the better reason for explains it even better as to why CELZ ran the way it did because of that OTC QB status as well. It does mean a lot to investors in particular. All right. My alter ego. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. So I also use iHub. So I got sidetracked. Sorry about that. So OTC Markets, Investors Hub is another networking platform that a lot of OTC stock traders use. And I express caution. There's a lot of people that really know what they're doing. There's a lot of people that don't. So again, I always like to preface that by saying, don't buy in anything that you don't understand, and don't buy anything based off of anybody's opinion. But Investors Hub does have good tools and a way where people can consolidate due diligence so that it really cuts out a lot of the work for you when it comes to doing your own due diligence. The only thing that I would suggest you do if you're going off of somebody's own due diligence is to go back and follow up behind them. Don't take their word for it. Always do your own work as well. Those links that or the due diligence that they provide on Investors Hub certainly gives you a head start, and that's always a good thing, especially when you're trying to get into something early. Yahoo Finance is another resource that provides news that comes out for over-the-counter stocks. Typically, your brokerages such as TD Ameritrade and E-Trade won't display news on various over-the-counter stocks. Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. These companies have to pay for news to be broadcasted on those platforms, and sometimes they just don't pay it or can't afford it or whatever. But Yahoo Finance usually almost always has that on there. And if you have an equity feed, which is a great tool for scanning and that sort of thing, usually news pops up on equity feed as well. So let's see here. Is subscription Investors Hub worthwhile? I would say no, and I'm going to tell you that it's because I have a project of my own that I'm working on with Jake, who's also a admin within our group, that I personally feel like is going to blow iHub away. So if you're willing to stick it out with me for a little bit longer as we get that underway, then and it's going to be free for you to use, then I would suggest maybe not paying for iHub at this point. But that's just me, and that's my own bias, I guess, towards that. So make your own decision. But if you're asking me, I'm telling you no. Yahoo has a decent scanner. Good to know. Made first trade and gains on OTCs. Thanks, bro. Clark chimes in. Yeah, no problem, man. Awesome to see. What happens to OTC stock when it becomes listed on Nasdaq? So good question. It usually is a very good thing. We've seen it happen very rarely, but it does happen. DCTH is the first ticker that comes to mind that was uplisted to Nasdaq. Unfortunately, it came crashing back down to the OTC, but it does happen, and oftentimes it really boosts the price point of that stock and its valuation once it gets uplisted to Nasdaq. Everybody's always trying to get uplisted to Nasdaq because that's where the real money is, right? So it does happen. Doesn't happen often, but I hope that answers your question. All right. Have you been watching hemp and MJ stocks? Not really. I just watch based off of volume and that sort of thing. I don't necessarily look at sectors in particular, but that's just me. E-Trade has dashboard. E-Trade does have a dashboard for news, but it doesn't always have the news that we're looking for, like Yahoo Finance would have, or like even like Edgar Filing would have, those types of things, because these companies a lot of times are so small that you don't get a whole lot of attention, and that includes E-Trade or TD Ameritrade. Again, they have to pay to have news released on their platforms, and sometimes they just won't pay for that. So, okay, guys. Well, I appreciate you tuning in. I think I'm going to cut it there. As far as the rest of our talk goes tonight, I hope that I was able to help give you an understanding on how Bollinger Bands work and how that could help you with your entry and exits when making trades, whether you're swing trading or day trading. And so I just wanted to leave it with this. Again, if this is your first time visiting my channel, again, welcome. Please subscribe to my channel, like this video if you found this useful. And for my returning folks, thanks again for tuning in. I want to just say too that last night was great, by the way. I really enjoyed talking with Cameron. You guys really blew up Cameron's YouTube page, and he was really excited about that. I mean, his subscribers doubled, which isn't saying much considering he had only 40 subscribers, but it was still awesome to see. I really loved to see that. And it was just a good conversation. It was good to get inspiration from somebody like Cameron, especially someone who's so young and just put some real work in and just, chasing that American dream. And I really want to continue with that segment. So having said that, I would like for you guys, the only way that I can continue that segment is with your help. And so I need you to either, get with somebody who who has a net worth of $1 million or more, or have them reach out to me. You can comment on this video, comment on any of my videos. I read every single one of your comments, by the way. So by all means, comment and have them reach out to me either here or through Discord. And I would be happy to continue that segment, because I really think that not only myself, but you guys as well got a lot out of it. And I was really just entertaining, to say the least. Okay. That is all I got for you guys tonight. I hope that you enjoyed yourselves. I did too. And I will see you all before the bell. That's all I got for you. B. Smith is out.